Hello everybody, welcome to your weather forecast. I am Mr. G, also known as Julie Godot, and we're going to be talking about all the crazy severe weather that's taking place this weekend. We saw a pretty spectacular day across the plains yesterday with those tornadoes. Did you see the big tornado in Nebraska and Iowa, down in southwestern Iowa? I believe it was an EF5. That thing was huge. And it took a train off the track, okay? It derailed a train. That was pretty impressive. So to see that it just did a lot of severe damage. It was definitely at least the EF4, just based off what I saw from the damage. So pretty spectacular day across the plains yesterday with the severe weather. Today might be a little bit worse than we saw yesterday, so not any different. So let's take a look at our first map. Oh, a little bit of channel maintenance for you before we continue. If you're watching me on TikTok or YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Leave your likes and comments. And on TikTok, you can leave a follow, leave your comments and everything as well. So let's move on with the weather forecast today and our first map. And our first map is going to be a look at the current conditions out there across the country. So this is where we're seeing out there across the country. Here across the plains, Kansas and Oklahoma, here we are looking at thunderstorms into Arkansas, North Texas here. These are thunderstorms that are developing out there. We're seeing some showers and thunderstorms in the Ohio Valley as well, southern Illinois, Indiana, and into Ohio. Then we have an upper level low pressure center here across the Great Lakes, and that's bringing rainfall and some embedded thunder as well into southern Canada, northern Minnesota, northern Michigan, and Wisconsin, and that's extending all the way into eastern Canada and the northeast down to the mid-Atlantic states where we're seeing some rainfall. We got some more scattered showers down here across the southeast, across the Carolinas, Georgia, as well as into Florida, where we got some isolated to scattered thunderstorms out there today across mainly southwestern Florida. On the west coast, we are looking at some rain and snow up in the high elevations of the Pacific Northwest, and that extends into western Canada. So British Columbia, we're seeing some rain, and we're seeing rain in the Pacific Northwest, northwestern Washington, over Puget Sound, Elliott Bay, including Seattle, and that's going to be the I-5 corridor. We're going to be seeing some rain out there. We got some snow in the Rockies, so around the Denver area, we're seeing snow today, and we're seeing snow across the central Rockies this afternoon. So that's a look at the current conditions across America. Here's a look at those current temperatures right now, and it's pretty warm across the south. Look at these 80s down here in Texas, and we're seeing a lot of 80s and 70s along the Gulf Coast. 60s and 70s here across the Midwest, and we're seeing temperatures in the 50s along this kind of a border area here between colder areas up in Canada and the northern plains, where we're seeing 40s in northern Minnesota, but we're seeing nice warm temperatures down to the south. Warm weather in the southwest as well. We're looking at those temperatures in the 70s across the desert southwest, so we quite haven't seen the desert heat begin to flare up. But as we head into May, we're definitely going to start to see that desert heat begin to rise as well. So we're going to talk about your severe weather parameters now. So we have that severe weather threat today. Let's look at what's contributing to that and why we think we're going to see a lot of severe weather. This is CAPE here. This is the convective available potential energy, and this is what we call, what we nickname thunderstorm juice. So this is the instability and the moisture that's in the atmosphere, and we see that thunderstorm juice extends all the way up into Wisconsin near the Lake Michigan. We got some thunderstorm juice, but a much more deeper CAPE down here across Texas and the southern plains. We have deeper CAPE. And then another aspect of not just having cake, we have another thing that's called sand, and that's this convective inhibition. And that convective inhibition is a layer of dry air in the mid levels of the atmosphere, which inhibit thunderstorm and cloud growth, because that layer of warm, it's not necessarily dry air, but the air cooling is what causes the clouds to condense and rise, and that creates that instability. But that layer of dry air creates a layer of stable air, usually at the mid levels, about 20,000 feet, 15 to 20,000 feet. That's where we have that layer of drier air, and that can prevent thunderstorm growth. And the convective burst pushes through that layer of dry air, and that causes the thunderstorms to continue to grow because they've broken the cap. This is when we say cap, the atmosphere is capped. This is what we're talking about. We're referring to what's known as CIN. And we're going to also talk about the HCl. This is the helicity. This is the tendency for the atmosphere to spin. So when those clouds are developing and those thunderstorms are growing, this is what measures the wind shear, and this is what shows that spin in the atmosphere, the tendency for the atmosphere to spin and that rotation to take place in those updrafts. And we look for what this is called helicity or HCl. Here is what our lapse rate, when we want to say whether or not we're going to see hail or not, the lapse rates is where we look at it. That's one of the things that we look at are the lapse rates. And if you look at the high lapse rates here across the plains, and the higher the lapse rates, that is going to be the stronger likelihood for hail and even large hail. So the darker colors indicate higher lapse rates and a higher potential for large hail. And here's our current radar situation and active severe weather threats. And we have a lot of severe thunderstorm warnings here across Oklahoma, North Texas. There's one tornado warning here near Wichita Falls, Texas. And we have another tornado warning here north of Stillwater, Oklahoma, near Bartlesville. And then we have a tornado warning in parts of northwestern Missouri right now. So the tornado watch, in effect, we have the potential here for very dangerous tornadoes. This is a pretty significant tornado watch, especially across Oklahoma and southern Kansas, where we have one set for a particularly dangerous situation that could occur, as the conditions are quite favorable for big tornadoes like what we saw in Iowa yesterday, with that big, huge wedge tornadoes. Remember yesterday when I said how the wedge tornadoes typically tend to be your larger tornadoes? The EF3s and EF4s typically tend to be wedge tornadoes, and that's what we saw in Nebraska and Iowa yesterday. Right in this region yesterday, we saw that big wedge tornado. And I believe it was a EF4 or 5. But I have not heard yet from the National Weather Service what the official readings are. But I'm willing to put my next paycheck on it being a 4 or a 5. There's no way it's less than a 4 or a category 5 when you look at the damage that thing has caused. Okay, so here's the upper level atmospheric currents right now. We have that big trough out over the west. This is why we're still seeing snow over the Rockies, because we still have cold air over the Rockies. So we have that colder air coming down over the west, and that trough is going to pivot across the plains over the course of this weekend, and we have that double barrel low pressure center. We will have those two Colorado lows across the plains in the Midwest right now that's going to be responsible for the severe weather that we're going to be seeing this weekend. And here we are, as what we're going to have today is that one area of low pressure here across the plains, and that's going to be centered over the Oklahoma Panhandle and southwestern Kansas. southeastern Colorado and parts of northeastern New Mexico. We have our cold front. We still have a dry line in place, but tomorrow we're going to see that dry line get overrun by the cold front that's going to be advancing out of the southern Rockies. And once that cold front catches up to the plains, it's going to overrun that dry line. So the dry line won't become a factor because it's going to eventually wash out as it gets overrun by the cold front. So that dry air and the cold air, that cold front, behind that cold front will take over on Sunday, but we're going to have all of this moisture here coming off of the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to have a southeasterly component to those winds, southwesterly component behind that cold front, and when those air masses collide, we're going to see that risk again for very large tornadoes across the plains and the Mississippi Valley tomorrow. So our severe thunderstorm threat today is really freaking high across Oklahoma, north central Texas, and southern Kansas. We have a 4 out of 5 today, so that's almost near the top of the line for severe weather, and we're going to see big tornadoes today in this region. And we have a very large area that we're going to see at least a 3 out of 5, and then have a 2 out of 5, and even 1 out of 5. So we have a lot of severe weather that we can see across the plains today. And here is that tornado potential. And now this dark color here is going to be the potential for strong tornadoes. We're going to see EF2s or greater likelihood here, but here we can see the EF0, maybe weaker tornadoes. But we have a large area that extends into southern Wisconsin all the way down to central Texas where we can see tornadoes today. We're going to see some hail as well, some big hail. We saw big hail yesterday, and again on Thursday we saw big hail across the plains all the way up to South Dakota, and we're going to see large damaging hail all the way up to Michigan, all the way up into Michigan, Wisconsin, parts of Minnesota, even southeastern Minnesota, down to the Mexican border, Del Rio and Eagle Pass, Texas. We're going to see the potential for large hail from some of these thunderstorms. And we're going to also see damaging hail. Do I have 2 with hail? Yeah, I think I do. So damaging hail. All right, that's our hail potential. So we're going to see quarter-size hail with 1 inch. And then we're going to see egg-size hail over 2 inch. So the darker colors of what we're going to see, the more likely possibility that we're going to see 2-inch diameter hail or bigger. So here is our damaging wind, and I forgot to do my little work here on my editing, so that's something I have to remember when I create the maps tomorrow, to pay attention to that, because I totally missed that. But here's we're going to see our level 3 threat for damaging winds here across the plains. So we're going to see those winds about 70 to 75 miles per hour. So that's, again, another look at the area where we're going to see the highest threat, where that 4 out of 5 here across the central plains, North Texas, across Oklahoma to southern Kansas. But that severe threat extends all the way to the Canadian border, down to the Mexican border, over the entirety of the central U.S. Here is your severe weather forecast for the plains. This is what we're going to see today. Again, that big, large area of severe weather across the plains. Look at your city: Dallas, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Chicago, Green Bay, and even eventually down to Memphis. We're going to see those storms in your area come Monday. Here's that severe weather threat for tomorrow, for Sunday. Again, a 2 out of 5 threat for severe weather from Des Moines all the way down to Austin, Texas, and San Antonio. Heavy rain is going to lead to flash flooding. Some areas can pick up as much as 5 inches across the plains, especially on Sunday, as more moisture gets sucked in off of the Gulf of Mexico, and it becomes more of the focus is producing gully washers. So again, we have total 21 current warnings in effect for severe weather, 15 severe thunderstorms, 5 tornado warnings in place right now, and 1 for damaging winds. And we have 17.4 million people today at risk for severe weather and storms. We got 103,743 people under severe warnings right now. And then today's top wind reports, we saw Douglas, Kansas, see a wind gust of 60 miles per hour. Today's top hail, we saw Sealing, Oklahoma with 1.75. Ringwood, Oklahoma saw hail 1.25, and Goodland, Texas 1.25 as well. So a lot of severe weather already in play. My name is Mr. G. Thank you for watching the weather forecast today in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave your likes, comments. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Leave a follow on TikTok. I may or may not be here tomorrow. We'll just see how it goes. But again, I'll try to be here if the weather gets too ridiculous and we need to do an emergency video, but we'll do one. But until then, I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.